You confused as well? Alright, don't worry, I'm here to help. When it comes to Doctor Who, there are a lot of mysteries within the narrative canon still to be solved, including the entire Timeless Child history, the timeline of the Fugitive Doctor, and the subject of today's video, the Doctor describing himself as half-human. For those who don't know, there was a line of dialogue in particular from the 8th Doctor in the 1996 TV movie where he claims to be half-human on his mother's side. Whilst it was originally intended to act as part of an American-produced continuation by Fox, the viewing figures of the TV movie led to no follow-up sadly being produced, and this line became one of Who's many unanswered mysteries. Come the 2010s and the further use of expanded media, that being comics and Big Finish stories, we got an answer to this question of why the 8th Doctor referred to himself as half-human. However, it's not as clear-cut as you may think. In this video, I'll be breaking down the half-human mystery of the Doctor and how he may have used said mystery as a plan to trick the Master. Okay, so here's a full explanation as to what I'm talking about here. In the 1996 television movie, the Doctor, having recently regenerated, tells a stranger that he is apparently half-human on his mother's side.
I'm half-human on my mother's side.
And this isn't brought up for the rest of the story outside of a few pieces of dialogue, specifically the Master discovering this reveal himself.
The Doctor is half-human. No wonder.
For many years, fans were debating whether or not this was now a part of the canon, and we wouldn't get a definitive answer until the release of a Doctor Who comic titled The Forgotten, and within this story, the 8th Doctor reveals that he used a half-broken chameleon arch to turn himself half-human in order to trick the Master. And whilst this did seem to solve the actual mystery of the Doctor's half-human nature, this then brought up another question. When exactly was he supposed to have gone through this process? The reason this question was asked is because when you watch the TV movie, there isn't really any time on screen for the Doctor to have actually turned himself half-human, and even if it was done off screen, there still doesn't seem to be any time for him to do so. However, could this all be part of some larger conspiracy? Now, before we get to that, however, I think it's important to first establish a little bit of backstory for newer fans of Who not immersed in the show or they haven't watched the TV movie. So, the Doctor and the Master were childhood friends and grew up together on Gallifrey, even attending the Prydonian Academy together. And depending on your viewpoint of what is or is not canon, the two friends were, at one point, members of a group called the Decker, which included other Gallifreyans such as the Monk, the War Chief, the Doctor's brother Irving Braxtiel, and the Rani. Come the events of the TV movie, the Master was to be executed by the Daleks, as part of a treaty between Skaro and Gallifrey, and the 7th Doctor had been tasked with taking the remains of the Master back to Gallifrey. However, chaos ensues and the Master escapes, eventually heading to 1999 San Francisco and taking over the body of a paramedic named Bruce. Eventually, the Master is defeated and imprisoned inside the Eye of Harmony and the day is saved, but there are still questions left to be answered. Namely, if the Doctor and the Master grew up together on Gallifrey, then why would the Master only just be learning that his best friend was half-human this entire time? Okay, so let's assume for a moment that the Doctor is half-human. If this were true, then this would have to mean the Doctor's mother in canon is human, but we already know from other expanded media that the Doctor's mother is a full Time Lord, but not in the way that you might expect. Now, the Doctor saying that he's half-human on his mother's side seems to imply that his mother was human whilst his father was a Gallifreyan or a Time Lord. Now, the original idea for this half-human story came from the aforementioned follow-up to the TV movie, which was to be an American-produced continuation of the show by Fox. The story of this follow-up to the TV movie would have revealed that the Doctor's mother was in fact a human time traveller, and this plot point was even discussed and hinted at in a few of the 8th Doctor adventure novels. Specifically, these books included Alien Bodies, The Infinity Doctors, Grim Reality, Unnatural History, The Gallifrey Chronicles and The Shadows of Avalon. Now, The Shadows of Avalon in particular, along with another short story mixed in, has the 8th Doctor state that he isn't entirely sure how he came into being, either through biological parents or a loom, with the latter being long speculated to be how Gallifreyans became Time Lords and gained the regeneration ability. And whilst the Timeless Child / the Doctor is the root origin itself, looms are how this process would be given to Time Lords many years later. Okay, going back to the Doctor's mother, this plot point of her being a human time traveller, as well as the Doctor being unsure of how he came into being, aren't generally considered canon, simply because the follow-up to the TV movie was never produced, and the 8th Doctor Adventures novels aren't generally considered canon either, with these novels having been followed on from the Virgin New Adventures books, which are also not considered canon. And since then, we've had further implications and reveals regarding the Doctor's mother. For one thing, there is the mysterious woman in the End of Time who, according to Russell T Davies, was written originally to be the Doctor's mother. However, that wasn't fully implied on screen. A later comic story titled The Comfort and the Good shows a monster taking on the appearance of the Doctor's mother who appears in full Time Lord robes, which confirms that the Doctor is not half human on his mother's side at all. So where exactly did this come from? Now, as previously mentioned, the Doctor explained in The Forgotten that he used a half-broken chameleon arch to trick the Master during the events of the TV movie, which does answer the question of where this quote-unquote half-human line actually came from. But as I've explained, there isn't really an opportunity for him to do this early on in the TV movie, due to him still recovering from the regeneration, which I'll actually come back to. Now, the more popular idea surrounding this is that the Doctor actually used the half-broken chameleon arch just prior to the events of the TV movie, whilst still being in his 7th incarnation, played by Sylvester McCoy. This all comes down to the Eye of Harmony, which the Master later uses in the final act to destroy Earth in 1999, though this does get reversed. The Doctor tells Grace later on in the TV movie that if he himself looked into the Eye of Harmony, then his soul would be destroyed, providing the Master with the opportunity to take over his body. So what exactly was the Doctor's plan here? Well, let me explain. Knowing that he couldn't trust the Master even when the latter was under lock and key, and also knowing that if the Master escaped and eventually stole more bodies, that they wouldn't retain their human eyes, combining that with other pieces of evidence including the half-broken chameleon arch, the Doctor turns himself half-human, or more specifically gave himself a pair of human eyes to act as a key to the Eye of Harmony. This would have restricted the Master's ability to open the eye in the event that he did escape, which he does but not through those means anyway. Now, being the only quote-unquote human eye in the TARDIS, at least before the final act of the story with Grace and Chang Li gang involved, the Doctor, using this half-broken chameleon arch, had ensured that he was the only one who could open and close the Eye of Harmony. Now, this links the Doctor not only to the eye itself, but also to the TARDIS as well. The Doctor's new quote-unquote human eyes linked him to the Eye of Harmony, allowing him to open and close it, whilst his symbiotic nuclei also kept the Doctor linked to the TARDIS. This link the Doctor shared with the TARDIS also allowed the latter to recognise what the Doctor's next incarnation would look like. And that then brings us to the TV movie Regeneration, because if the 7th Doctor turned himself half-human, then how would his plan stay intact post-regeneration? Well, here's the theory. The energy released by the Eye of Harmony in the final act was very much similar, if not almost identical, to the energy released during the Doctor's regeneration in the story. Now, due to the anesthesia destroying his ability to regenerate, through its link with the Doctor via the Eye of Harmony is where the TARDIS gives the Doctor a quote-unquote push to complete the regeneration into a new body, as the Doctor being half-human would no doubt restrict that power. And finally, the TARDIS, in order to preserve the Doctor's plan, ensured that the eye structure of the 8th Doctor remained human, and the Master's exclamation at finding out that the Doctor is half-human is not that he's only just finding this out, it is his newfound understanding of the Doctor's plan, and the discovery that a human eye would unlock the Eye of Harmony.
The Doctor is half-human. No wonder.
Once the Master fell into the Eye of Harmony and the events of the TV movie had more or less wrapped up, the Doctor would use the broken chameleon arch and reverse the process, turning him back into a full Time Lord once again. So I hope this actually clears up that plot hole regarding the whole half-human mystery from the TV movie. If you guys have your own thoughts on this mystery of the Doctor, or if there's another mystery in the canon you'd like to see me take a look at, then let me know down in the comments below. But in the meantime, be sure to like this video, subscribe so that you don't miss any more just like it. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you very soon.